Splitting the Straw Hat Pirates for the Elbaf arc was by far the single best writing move Oda could have made, as it was desperately needed at this point in the story. Because at this moment we are coming off the Egghead Island arc, which simultaneously had the best character writing in the entire story for One Piece's side characters, and the worst character writing in the entire story for the actual Straw Hats. Because the reality is, the Straw Hats have simply become a giant, near unmanageable 10-man ensemble, as there is only so much storytelling space to go around. So as more characters are added, the potential focus each individual character can get shrinks. And when you add in significantly increased focus on side characters as the New World has progressed, the already shrinking screen time of the Straw Hats has decreased even more drastically. On top of all this, the unfortunate truth is not all Straw Hats are created equal, so whereas Oda will always somehow find something or another for a Zoro or a Sanji, the newer Straw Hats seem to have been left to fight for scraps of story time as the New World has gone on. Egghead Island was probably the breaking point of this sidelining of the crew, and particularly the newer members. Something had to change. And so the brilliant move Oda made was simply splitting one giant, unwieldy ensemble into two distinct ensembles that could be each focused on one at a time. And most importantly, he divided the groups by need. The old Straw Hats and the new Straw Hats have very different needs in terms of character writing right now, and the Elbaf arc is set up to perfectly address both of those needs. This isn't like a Dressrosa or a Whole Cake where half the crew was just gone for the entire arc. Both groups are going to be in the Elbaf storyline. One half is already there, and the other half has a journey there to complete. Their storylines will converge in Elbaf, but it appears that Oda has a distinct vision in mind as to how he needs to approach the first group versus the second. So let me break down how the Straw Hats ensemble reached this point, the division between the two halves and what they both respectively need, and how separating the group seems to set us up for two very distinctly different storylines for both groups. But before we get into it, if you love the world of One Piece, or you just want the opportunity to screen with me to share your One Piece ideas in front of thousands of viewers, I am excited to announce the Great Pirate Race. The renowned artist Dredge is bringing the entire world of One Piece to life, island by island, as travel posters for your walls. And Dredge is releasing these exclusively through the Morge channel. Each month, new batches of One Piece islands will be released to build the complete set. And this month, you can get Egghead Island, Whole Cake Island, and Wano to begin your collection. And Dredge is only making the Egghead, Whole Cake, and Wano posters this month, and then never again, so next month will be a new batch of islands as the collection continues. But the best part is, the posters themselves are tickets. If you have a lot of ideas about the series that you've been dying to talk about to a broader audience, then with your bundle of One Piece travel posters, you get an invite to join me on stream to talk about any One Piece theories or analytical insights that you have, or you can debate me live on any One Piece topic that you're itching to argue about in front of thousands of viewers. On top of that, you can also join me in a smaller private group setting in a happy hour that I'll be hosting this month for all viewers with travel posters. Plus, if you get the travel posters, you get a 20% discount on all other items in the Morge store, meaning our entire clothing line, all previous art pieces, and puzzles. You'll even get a high-quality bookmark of Luffy's iconic Bajrangun attack, hand-drawn by Dredge, thrown in for free. And lastly, I told you this was the Great Pirate Race, right? Well, there's one final prize that one of you can get. Each month's bundle of posters comes with a code on the back to be solved. If you can put it together and follow the clues, the first person to solve the whole thing will get one final additional exclusive gift that no one else will get. And of course, you'll be announced and featured as the winner of that month's Great Pirate Race in one of my videos. So while Dredge's art pieces would ordinarily be $300 total, through the Morge channel you can get all three together, plus you get to live stream with me, an invite to a private happy hour, 20% off the entire Morge store, a Bajrangun manga bookmark, and a signed thank you from me. And of course, the opportunity to win the Great Pirate Race itself, all bundled together for just $250. And again, these three posters are genuinely only going to be printed and produced for this month of September and this month only. So hit the link in the description below to get your bundle. Grab this collection before it's gone. So that aside, to begin with, there has definitely been a clearly observable trend in One Piece of the story becoming less and less Straw Hat-centric. That is just what will naturally happen as more and more side characters begin to take up story space. If you go back to an arc like Alabasta, which featured only the absolutely necessary key side characters, it allowed the storyline to still be primarily focused on the Straw Hats and their journey, taking its time developing the Straw Hats' relationship with the island and its conflict and their personal investment. Fast forward to an arc like Wano, where the majority of the Straw Hats have zero meaningful writing in the entire setup phase of Act 1 and Act 2, and are essentially background characters compared to the hordes of Wano side characters that take center stage. Most of the Straw Hats were irrelevant for the majority of Wano, till some of them got fights in the end, which at least provided some character writing. And then finally we got to Egghead, which officially took things over all the way to the other extreme, where in the entire arc it was entirely about the side characters. Bonnie, Kuma, Vegapunk, Kizaru, Kobe, Garp, Aokiji, and so on. The Straw Hats themselves were basically NPCs, as this was the first major arc in One Piece ever, where not a single Straw Hat had any character conflict, character arc, character development, or dramatic point of focus. Even Zoro's fight was off-screened. This is just the natural consequence of heavy focus on side characters. The more the story focuses on side characters, the less writing space there is to focus on the Straw Hats. So Egghead was the logical endpoint of this shifting trend towards increased side character focus. But that's not all. It's not just about the characters outside the crew. The crew itself suffers from the problem of too many characters. In storytelling, the general rule is the more characters you have, the less individual focus is possible for each character, and originally the Straw Hats were just 5 characters, and in fiction, 5 is often about as big as a team of main characters is made to be in order to maintain focus on each of them. The Straw Hat crew is now double that size, and potentially even more considering we may even now be getting more crew members. Even if we magically had a New World arc where there are no side characters at all, it would still be extremely difficult to have meaningful writing for the majority of the crew, when the crew is now so absurdly big. And so it's not just the Straw Hat screen time competing with side characters, what we also have is the Straw Hat screen time competing with each other. And herein lies the final problem, which is that again, not all Straw Hats are created equal. The East Blue 5 will always get more consistent focus than the new Straw Hats. Out of the original 5, the only one who you could argue has slipped a bit in importance recently is Usopp, and that's actually just recency bias since Usopp in Dressrosa is genuinely arguably as significant as Zoro was in Wano. Considering Usopp had all the most significant character moments, freed the entire nation, was canonically established to be the most impactful figure in the conflict, became worshipped by the nation as a god, created the entire Straw Hat Grand Fleet, and left the nation as a legendary hero forever immortalized as a statue in their city center. That is literally more character focus than Robin, Frankie, Brook, and Jinbei combined across the entire post-time skip. And even if Usopp then went a few arcs without as much focus, that's because Oda had another heavily Usopp-centric arc planned for him in Elbaf. Remember, there's no such thing as a Robin-centric or Frankie-centric arc in the post-time skip. Those don't exist, and we don't really expect those to exist. The reality is, half the crew can always be counted on to get attention at some point or another, and the other half is basically fighting for whatever is left over. So, to recap, the Straw Hat problem that has developed in the New World is that first, the arcs in general have become less Straw Hat-centric with an increased focus on side characters. On top of that, the crew size itself has increased significantly, so there is less time for each Straw Hat even amongst the crew itself. And finally, some Straw Hats are simply more important than the others, so most of the newer crew members suffer from the decreased Straw Hat focus even more than the rest. So what is the answer to all this? Well, the crew needed to be split again. Splitting the crew does work, because dealing with a smaller ensemble allows for more focused character writing. This can be seen as the one New World arc that had by far the best character writing for the Straw Hats was Whole Cake Island. This arc had genuinely powerful character storylines for Luffy and Sanji, significant dramatic focus on Nami, a memorable debut performance for Jinbei as an official Straw Hat, literally the only highlight moments for Brook in the entire series, and even some development for Chopper, who finally got to start acting as a leader instead of as a sidekick for the first time in the story. Not a single Straw Hat in Whole Cake Island could be said to have been sidelined or forgotten. They all had their moments and their shine, and most importantly, every single one of them went through an actual emotional journey. Even if readers have other critiques of Whole Cake, the Straw Hat's writing is not one of them, as it really was back to a pre-time skip level of focus again. And the simple reason for that was that Whole Cake Island had both far fewer side characters than other New World arcs, and far fewer crew members to focus on. Working with a smaller ensemble is the right way to give attention to characters that have been lacking it for hundreds of chapters. And in this case, Oda has split the crew in a manner that is very different than before, in that he split them between the older Straw Hats who get more spotlight normally, and the newer Straw Hats who are regularly put in the background. This is absolutely perfect, because think of what it does for both groups. For Luffy, Zoro, Nami, Usopp, Sanji, and Chopper's group, this allows us to return to the simple core foundational character dynamic of One Piece that used to carry the story, Arcs like Arlong Park or Alabasta tightly focused on the main characters and their emotional journeys, before this dynamic became drowned under a sea of side characters. In particular, if this is meant to be an important arc for Usopp, much like Whole Cake Island was for Sanji, then a smaller, more focused cast of characters will do wonders for allowing more focused character writing similar to Whole Cake Island. On the other hand, for the group that is still at sea, the newer Straw Hats, Robin, Frankie, Brooke, Jinbei, potentially Bonnie, and potentially Lilith, for them this is an absolutely huge, unprecedented opportunity for them to finally be able to shine on their own without the presence of the older, more favored crewmates. There is no more East Blue 5 to steal the spotlight. In particular, there's no more Monster Trio to steal the action. And as Elbaf is set to be another arc focused on an East Blue member, Usopp, well, now the newer Straw Hats don't have to just sit around and play second fiddle to Usopp's character development. They can be having their own entirely separate story without being background characters to Usopp's. As for the type of storytelling we might be able to get for Robin's group, the most exciting thing about this separation is the potential for them having to deal with a high-stakes conflict on their own. See, when the Straw Hat crew are all together, at this point in time they've become so strong that there is almost no entity on the ocean that they would not be favored against. We just saw the Marines throw an Admiral and a mega-sized Buster Call at the Straw Hat crew, and it was an absolute joke to them. It wasn't until all 5 Gorosei themselves were called down that things actually got difficult. So if the Straw Hats all together can effortlessly tear through Admirals and Buster Calls at this point, there's almost nothing that the Straw Hats can encounter anymore while sailing the seas that would genuinely be a problem for them. Seriously, short of running into the entire Blackbeard pirates or the red-haired pirates, what can the Straw Hats possibly encounter anymore that would be a challenge for them? However, that changes if the Monster Trio is removed. Because see, Robin's group is definitely not weak. They are strong fighters, but none of them can take on top tiers by themselves. With this group on their own, there is now genuine potential for difficult conflicts, depending on who they run into on the seas. And difficult conflicts make for excellent writing potential as characters have to overcome adversity. For instance, meeting the man marked by flames who sinks ships single-handedly could be around the corner for this group. There is also one other significant piece of writing potential for this group should they be the ones to run into Vivi at sea, which I expand upon in my weekly podcast, which you can get by supporting me on Patreon, link in the description below. So ultimately, this is what the story desperately needed. For both groups, some greater individual focus was necessary, and so 2 small ensembles is the perfect way to go about it. 10 characters is just too many for everyone to shine. There aren't really any stories with a team of 10 characters that all actually genuinely get attention and deep focus. That's why such ensembles generally have to be split up to get better character writing. And to be honest, I personally think we reached our peak with 8 characters as of Water 7 and Enies Lobby, as the pinnacle of Straw Hat character writing, with everyone being able to get focus. So at this point, splitting things back up into 2 similarly small-sized groups instead of 1 big ensemble may allow us to once again get top-tier character writing for the entire crew. And that is an absolute necessity at this point because we are in the final saga. We are past the point of saying, oh, Frankie didn't get any focus this arc, maybe he'll get something next arc after arc. Because this is it. This is the end point. This is the saga that really should be the most Straw Hat centric, as they are all at the end of their journeys. This is the time that their character arcs are coming to a close, where their dreams will begin to reach their conclusions. It's time for the Straw Hats to stop feeling like background characters in their own story, and return to the spotlight. And that means all of the Straw Hats, not just the old school crew. So Elbaf seems to have started with the best writing move possible, one that promises an arc that is committed to delivering strong character writing for the entire Straw Hat Pirates. Let me know in the comments below what type of storyline you expect for each of the Straw Hat groups now that they've been separated. And if you enjoyed this video, then definitely like and subscribe. And you can get my thoughts on how Vivi plays into all this on my weekly podcast by supporting me on Patreon, link in the description below. And make sure to get your bundle of travel posters for this month of Egghead, Whole Cake, and Wano before they're gone. And to get all of your additional perks listed here, link in the description below.